Madison Clean Police Homicide Unit. If we could just go around the room and introduce ourselves.
Jeff Fulmer with CPPA.
Frank Garmback, patrolman.
Henry Hilo, CPPA lawyer.
Ron Tim, homicide unit.
Rob Tucker, Internal Affairs.
All right, Officer Garmback, badge is 1582, correct?
Correct.
All right, you're being ordered to this interview pursuant to the orders of Chief of Police and the established principles of Garrity versus New Jersey. What we would ask from you is to give us an accurate account of the events that occurred on Saturday, November 22nd, 2014 at 1910 West Boulevard, which is the Cudell Recreation Center. Just start off with, what time you started working that day, and we'll go from there.
I started at 15:30 hours.
Okay.
Or, I'm sorry, 14:30 hours.
Okay.
Roll call. I'm in B platoon on Adam 125. Adam 25.
Okay.
We had roll call. We went out to the zone car. Fueled it up. Radio then gave us an assignment for an alarm on 102 in Lorraine, St. Ignatius Church.
Okay.
Okay.
Now this day you're driving or riding?
This day I am driving.
Okay, and who are you working with?
I am an FTO, and I was working with probationary officer Timothy Loehmann.
Okay.
Okay. We come out of roll call, get into the car, go get air in a tire. That's when the radio gives us the code 2 alarm at St. Ignatius Church. I think general motion. We proceed to go down there. When we arrive, there are 3 individuals outside the church in like a plumbing van.
Okay.
They said they accidentally set off the alarm because there's a key box. They got in there, they didn't know the alarm was set. I asked them for their identification. We got the one gentleman's ID because the other ones had him in a separate car on the other side of the street. As we were there, the father of the church, the pastor, father, reverend, came up to us. He lives right there. He didn't have his ID on him. I asked him, these guys okay? He said he identified himself as such and such. He didn't have his ID on him, so I asked him if he could turn off the alarm to show me that he had access to the church. He gained entry with the key, went in there, disarmed the alarm. At that point, we were good, just finishing up, walking out, got into our zone car. We're ready to punch in our duty. At that time, radio called out for any car that can brake, for a code 1, male with a gun, waving at people at Cudell Rec, sitting on the swings.
Okay.
So I told my rookie partner, I said, take the assignment. I mean, we're right here. They give him the assignment for 1910 West Boulevard, male with a gun, waving at people, black male, camouflage hat, gray jacket, black sleeves, and at this point I'm not sure if they said pants or not, what color pants.
Okay.
Okay, I tell them, okay, we take it. We start, as we proceed there, we're just getting ready to leave the parking lot of the church. Adam 26 says, that's our zone, we'll handle it. So I said, okay, tell them we'll back them up. Okay, so we pull out a driveway, we go eastbound on Lorraine to West Boulevard, which is like a 100 feet.
Right.
Eastbound, and I go northbound on West Boulevard.
Driving, no lights and sirens?
No, I had lights.
Okay.
I had to get through some intersections because there's a male with a gun. So we're heading northbound on West Boulevard. I have my lights on, going through a couple intersections between Lorraine and Madison. I'm explaining to my partner, I'm giving him a scenario. I tell him, this is a gun run. What would you do in a gun run? He starts going out, well, I'd get out of the car. I'd be in a certain stance, and I stopped him at that point. I said, this is a gun run. Be prepared for the worst case scenario. I tell him, have your gun unholstered already on your lap. Okay. He says, okay. And then, so as we're still proceeding northbound on West Boulevard, I explained to him that we're going to go in through the back way because it puts us right by the swings.
Okay.
Okay. And
the back
way is like West 100 by the fire station.
Okay.
So as we get to Madison Avenue, I go eastbound on Madison to West 100, and I go northbound.
Okay.
As I turn on northbound onto West 100, you can clear a shot into the park. I can see that there's nobody on the swing. I can see somebody in the pavilion. Can't make out anything until I get closer.
Pavilion is the gazebo area that's
Yes,
smaller.
yes,
Okay.
yes. It's right next to the swing. It's almost adjacent to it.
Okay.
As I get closer to the dead end, there's a sidewalk. You can go right up into the park. As I get up into that sidewalk, I can see the camouflage hat. I can see the gray coat and black sleeves. I said, there's the guy. So I start going up that way. I can see the guy stand up. He starts coming. He went like westbound for a few steps out of the pavilion, and he started proceeding northbound, like he's gonna run. So I drive the zone car through the grass and up and over. And as I'm driving through there, following, I keep telling my rookie, I go, he's gonna run, he's gonna run. Be prepared, he's gonna run. As I get closer and closer, the kid stops and turns and faces us. At this time, I can hear Patrolman Loman yelling, show me your hands, show me your hands, show me your hands. I can see through here the kid reaching, pulling.
Take your time.
I didn't know it was a kid. I could see him pulling the gun out of his waistband. I don't know if I was in the car or out of the car. I can still see him through the window. I heard 2 shots.
How many shots?
I think 2.
2. Okay.
I then run around the car. I can see the suspect down, and I can see right by him. There's like a handgun, a foot or 2 away from his hand. I go running up to it. I kick the gun out of the way. I'm letting dispatch know that we have a male down, gunshot wound. We need EMS. We need a boss. At this time, I can see Patrolman Loman, my partner, behind the car. He says foot. I ask him if he's been hit. He says no. He thinks he just twisted his ankle. I'm still looking at this kid. He's reaching still. We're telling him, show me your hands. Show me your hands. I know I kicked a gun away, but I'm not sure what he's still doing. And then he lifts his shirt up, and I think he went to show me his wound.
Okay.
Okay. At this time, I hear yelling and screaming coming from behind me. I look, and it's a girl coming out of Cudell Rec. She's saying, you shot my brother, you shot my brother. So at this time, I know there's nothing on this kid. He's just laying there with no weapon. The weapon's far away from him. I go over to stop this girl from coming over here by him. I don't want her to see him. I don't want nothing going on over here. I try to grab her, and she slides to the ground. Meantime, Patrolman Loman comes over by me, and an off-duty comes out of Cudell Rec. I said, if you can handle her, put her in cuffs, put her in my car. I went back over to the suspect. I kept asking radio, speed him up, speed him up. You know,
Meaning the EMS?
Yes, yes. I kept asking for it several times. At this time, I think it's Detective Lentz, and what I find out now, it was an FBI agent. Pulled up on scene. I think they were actually the first car on scene besides us.
Okay.
He comes out, he tells me he's a paramedic. Does anyone have any gloves? I pull out.
The FBI agent?
Yes.
Okay.
I pull out 2 latex gloves, hand it to him. He starts doing some first aid, checking airways and all this other stuff. He's asking me, did you call EMS? I said, yeah, and I even went over cross radio one more time. I go, can you speed him up? We need it, we need him now. I even told him, I go, send fire. Fire's right there. I can see the police, I can see the fire station. It's right there across the street. And it seemed like forever for him to get there. While he's doing this, the kid's airways not doing real good. He tells me I have to put on a glove and put pressure here. I put on a glove, I'm putting pressure there, applying pressure. He's talking to the kid's looking at him, he's not saying much.
Is he saying anything?
No, nothing at all.
That you recall? Okay.
No, he's maybe moans.
Okay.
I can see that it's not looking good. I'm applying pressure. We got to roll him. We roll him. We checking for exit wounds. There's no exit wounds. We roll him back. He's asking, FBI agents asking if we have any blankets, any pads, anything in our car. I tell him, no, we don't. We have nothing. I get on radio, I'm telling them, speed it up, speed it up. And they don't. I mean, it don't seem nothing's going on. Hold on.
Take your time.
Yeah, I can see this kid's eyes rolling in the back of his head. He's barely breathing, and there's no rescue squad there. Finally, I'm holding it. Fire comes up. They're walking so slow. Other units who are on scene tell them to speed it up, get over there. They still walk slow. I'm holding pressure till they get whatever they got to get on. They get gloves. They got a pad. They take my position. They put the pad and they're putting pressure on her. At that time, I step back, remove my glove, throw it in the garbage. I step back from the crime scene. I didn't know what else to do. I mean, there's nothing else I could have done.
All right, when you're coming down 100th Street and you get to the park and you see him, are your lights still on?
My lights are not on.
Okay. At what point do you turn them off?
I turn them off as I'm probably making the turn from West Boulevard to get to Madison.
Okay.
Because I like to catch perps,
Okay.
suspects. I like to catch them, and if I go lights and sirens, they hear me, and they're not on scene anymore.
All right, so if
Especially with the male.
I believe I'm familiar with the area, but 100th Street kind of dead ends into the park.
Correct.
So when you get to the end, you don't have to worry about traffic, so your lights go off.
Right.
And you also want to have the element of surprise when you get
Right.
there. So your lights are off. You're obviously in a marked police car.
Correct.
The lights and sirens on top, but you turn the lights off.
Correct.
All right. How were you dressed that day?
I was dressed in full Class B uniform, my outer vest carrier, long sleeve shirt, long sleeve police issue shirts,
CPD patches on it.
CPD patches, my badge, full duty holster.
Okay. What as far as weapons that day? What did you have? Your city issued firearm.
City issue firearm, city issue taser, my pepper spray. Those are the weapons I had.
Any secondary guns?
No.
No secondary guns. Okay. All right. You said when you pulled in the parking lot, you guys can see. When you pull in the park, you can see the guy.
As I get up onto the sidewalk, I can see the guy that matched the description, not on the swings like they said, but in the pavilion.
Okay.
The gazebo pavilion.
And as you got closer, you said that your partner starts yelling out to the guy, "Show me your hands."
I'm driving up there. I'm at this point, I'm even with the swings coming in there. This is when the gentleman gets up off the bench and starts walking.
Okay.
I tell him, he's gonna run. And then it's like 10 seconds later, he's yelling out to him, "Show me your hands, show me your hands, show me your hands."
When your partner's yelling, do you know what he's doing? Can you see if the door's open? Is he yelling out the window?
No, I believe the door's open.
Okay.
I mean, the car, we tried to stop it and it's sliding.
Mhm.
You know,
So the conditions that day, it had snowed the night before?
it snowed the
was
night
pretty-
before, but we're on grass, leaves.
Mhm.
It's wet.
How about when you get in the park area, what is the lighting like?
Lighting's perfect daylight.
Okay.
You couldn't ask for.
This is 3:30 in the afternoon?
Yes, sir.
So you got a good view of this guy?
Yes.
Okay. The weapon that you eventually kicked away, what did that look like?
It looked like a 45,
What color?
black.
And you said that you believe you heard 2 shots fired by
I
your
believe
partner.
it was 2.
At any time did you fire your weapon?
No, sir. I did have it out in the car, and as I was exiting the car, until I came around and saw that there was no threat anymore. I holstered my weapon.
Okay. Now, when radio gives the assignment out to you, do you recall exactly what they said at the Code 1 assignment?
Code 1 came across as male at Cudell Park, I believe it's male at Cudell Park, camo hat, frayed jacket, black sleeves, waving a gun at people.
Did they give an age of the male?
No.
Okay. And they said a black male?
Yes.
Okay. Did they ever come back with any other information en route?
That was it.
Okay. Were you injured at all during this?
No, sir.
Any exposure to blood? You had gloves on?
I had gloves on. There was no.
None. And I believe you already covered it, but you don't recall him saying anything while you guys were trying to treat him? He's
I
just
didn't-
moaning, he's in obvious
He
pain.
didn't say nothing. I didn't hear
Okay.
nothing. It was just moans.
Do you recall seeing anyone else outside when you guys are pulling in?
No, there was nobody.
Nobody else outside
Just-
but that
just
one
him.
person? Okay.
First off, what's your appointment date?
February 25th, 2008.
Any prior service anywhere?
No, sir.
How long have you been in FTO?
Since this new program started, I believe March or April.
How many probationary officers have you trained?
This is my fourth one.
Okay. And Officer Loman, how long has he been assigned with you?
Since October 6th.
Okay. So you guys have the same days on,
Yes.
same days off, so
Same
you're
week
constantly
class.
working together?
Yes.
Okay. Does your car have an EVO?
Yes, sir.
And then how about cameras? Did it have dash camera,
We don't have dash cams.
body
No
cameras?
body cams.
Any personal
No,
cameras?
sir.
All right, so no recordings or
No,
nothing?
sir.
You made a comment when we did the walkthrough, one of the reasons why you came up 100th. Why was that?
It's 9 times out of 10, if somebody's doing something wrong in that park, they exit the park southbound on 100. That's the quickest way out because they believe police cars are coming through West Boulevard because that's the parking lot. So I came in that way, element of surprise. I mean,
So from prior experience,
Oh, yeah.
you know that that's the escape route that.
everyone runs
Okay.
southbound.
Right. When we started this, you said the broadcast came over for any car.
Any car.
You guys answered up, and then one Adam 26 answered up.
Correct.
Okay. Do you know where they were coming from?
Yeah, 150-ish in Lorraine.
Okay.
They were assisting another car in a domestic.
All right. And how far is that from where you guys were? From the park itself?
Couple miles.
How many minutes?
Lights and sirens, maybe 5, 6, depends on the traffic.
Okay. And then when you're coming up 100th, you see the guy in the pavilion who said that he got up. And
Yes.
he appeared that he was going to run.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is that why you continued?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Can I ask one question?
Go ahead.
When you were pulling up, did you see anything at all on the table?
No, sir.
Okay. Sorry.
So as you're pulling up on this suspect there, and he gets up, you think he's going to run. Do you have a constant vision of him? A
I
constant?
can see him as I'm driving this way. I can still see him. He's not that far of an angle from my car. He's not between the posts. He's still within my windshield until I hit the brakes, and I'm sliding. I can still see him. I'm trying to maintain control of the car, and then because I keep hearing Tim yelling, "Show me your hands! Show me your hands! Show me your hands!" So I'm not really focused on the front of the car at this time. When I hear you yell, "Show me your hands," I know something's going on.
Is it a wide open area, or is there barriers that you have to avoid hitting?
No, it's wide open. I mean, you get the pavilion and I don't know, 15, 20 feet to the west of us
Okay.
are barriers.
So
So-
are you saying you had constant vision of him, or were you glancing?
No,
back and forth?
when Tim started yelling, "Show me your hands! Show me your hands!" I'm watching him and hitting my brakes.
Okay. What happens with the car?
The car slides.
Okay.
Prob-
Do the anti-lock brakes kick in?
They're pulsating. They're
Okay,
just
so you can feel that.
Oh yeah.
Okay. And Detective Diaz did ask you whether the door was open or the window was down?
I believe Tim already had the door cracked. He had it open.
Okay. But the window was up.
I don't recall.
The condition, though, when we arrived on scene, the condition of your own car was the way you left it when you got out.
Yes.
Okay, you didn't go back into the car?
I did not go back into the
Turn
car.
off the engine,
No, I
roll up the
left
windows, anything?
everything at what it was. Even when we put the female in the back of the car, because I knew this is a crime scene. I knew not to move anything.
Okay.
So we left the car just like it is. They may have rolled the window down for her,
The back window?
windows,
Okay.
for air. She was complaining,
All right.
but I did not touch anything else on that car.
So then as he gets up, moves northbound,
Yes, sir.
and then turns back to come westbound towards where you guys are?
He got up, turned westbound to walk a few steps and then go northbound. As we're pulling up, he's still going northbound.
Did you see his hands at this point?
At his hands were down. As we get closer and closer, he turns. And Tim is yelling, "Show me your hands, show me your hands, show me your hands." I don't know, 4 or 5 times. Just kept going over. And that really got my attention. So now I'm looking at him. There's nothing I could do.
What do you see him do?
I see him reaching his waistband.
Show us, if you could.
For me to stand up and show.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
He goes like this and pulls.
So you're indicating with his left hand, he's pulling his shirt up?
His hand was over here. I'm not sure if it's, I mean, it just, I seen this coming up. You know, I'm focused right on this,
What do you see?
the gun. I see a black gun coming out of his waistband.
Does he get it all the way out?
I don't believe he had it all the way out.
Okay.
I mean, I don't think so. I think he had it, I don't know, it was huge. The gun was huge. It was pulling it out, and I hear Tim, you know, it was showing my hand, and I heard pop, pop. And then he went down.
Is Tim out of the car at this point? Or is he shooting from inside the car?
I don't remember.
Okay. All right. So you made a comment, go ahead, relax. You made a comment that the gun run, that as you were approaching, you had your weapon out too.
Yes.
All right, so you had it out of your holster?
Yes, sir.
It was in your lap?
It wasn't in my lap at my time. It was in my seat.
Okay, but it was out of the holster in your
Yes.
hand?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So then, as you're getting out, are you right, left-handed?
I'm right-handed.
All right, and you were able to put the car in a gear and,
I slammed it in the gear, grabbed my, I'm exiting the car.
okay.
The whole time I'm getting my gun on the suspect, so I had to be out of the car. I just had to be out of the car.
So did you take your weapon out after you put the car in park?
I took it from between my leg and the seat.
Okay, all right. And then you got out, and you came around the end?
I came around the front of the car.
Okay.
Because
And
Tim
just-
was on this side, I came around the front. Because the kid was right there.
Okay. And as you come around, let me take you back real quick. When you hear Tim yelling, "Show me your hands, show me your hands," and he makes the motion to come back towards you guys, raises his shirt and this and that, is he saying anything?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Nothing.
Okay. Alright. So now, the shooting's over, you're walking around the front of the car.
I think I run to the front until I get to the corner, or a jog to the corner of the car,
Mhm.
and I can see him still moving with the gun close to him. I
Okay, when
believe
you-
I still have my weapon on him.
Okay, when you say that, is he face down? Is he prone? Is he on his side?
I think he starts face down, and he's moving around. As I get closer, he turns over, and that's I approach more with my weapon on him.
And where's the gun at this point?
It is I guess it's close to his hand. It's, I don't know, 1.5 feet away from his hand.
Okay. Is it closer to his feet? Is it closer?
It's like by his knee.
Okay, so is it behind him?
It is, yeah. No, he's laying here, and then when he rolls, if he's on his back first, it's laying behind him. And then when he
Okay.
rolls, it's closer to his hands.
Okay, all right. So he rolled towards the east?
East, yes.
All right. And at that point is when you're still yelling for him to show his hands? Where is his hands at that point?
His hands are going in like this.
Okay. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking there's another gun.
Okay.
Because as I run up, I kick the one out, And I still think there's another gun.
Is that why you have your weapon out?
Yeah, because I don't know what he's doing.
Where's your partner at this
My
point?
partner's behind his own car, facing the suspect.
Has he made any comments to you?
No, he says that he's still yelling, "Show me your hands."
What, I'm sorry?
He's still yelling at the kid, "Show me your hands." Yeah, show me your hands. Because the kid, we don't know what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
He's just still going at his shirt. And then when I kicked the gun and I realized when he lifted his shirt that there was no other weapons there, that he was just showing me the wound,
Okay.
then I knew I holstered my weapon.
Right. Okay. And at that point, you made a comment that you got on the air, you said shots fired.
Yeah, so
Okay,
shots.
do you know when you did that? Was that after you had walked around the car, kicked the weapon out? If you remember.
I don't remember.
Okay, but you did make that.
I made
Let him know.
that call.
Okay. And you asked for EMS several times to step it up,
Yeah.
and then at one point you said that you asked for fire.
I said, send fire. They're across the street. I can see where they're at.
Okay. And you gave medical aid to him? All right. At any time did you guys handcuff him?
No, sir.
Okay. No handcuffs, didn't, other than rolling him at the, from the
The FBI
direction
agent.
from the EMT FBI agent is the only time that you actually touched him and then put the pressure on the
Yes.
wound? All right. From your estimate, how far away was he from the car when you heard the shots fired?
12 feet.
Okay.
Okay.
And he was coming at you guys?
He squared. He stopped moving northbound. And he just turned right at us.
And then he's walking towards you?
I don't remember walking. I just remember him turning.
Okay. And again, he didn't say nothing
No,
to you?
absolutely nothing.
All you could hear was Tim yelling,
Tim
show me
yelling,
your hands,
show
show
me
me
your
your
hands,
hands.
show me your hands,
And at
show me
that
your hands.
point, all right. I'm good at this point.
Good.
Henry?
Yeah, no
All
questions.
right.
All right, at this time, we'd like to take a written statement.
We'll just incorporate this as a written statement.
Okay. And if we could, just for the record, we started the interview about 12:20. I didn't mention at
That's
the
what I
beginning.
wrote down.
And if we could, this is for the advisement of his Garrity.
Frank, is there anything we're missing that you think we need to know? Okay.
I'll make a call.
Let me just-
The end, myself answer questions. It's not as much more the answers.
Okay, we're up and running.
All right, I'm Detective Diaz from the Cleveland Police Homicide Unit, and we are here for the interview of Officer Timothy Loehmann. Officer Loehmann, you are being ordered to this interview pursuant to the orders of the Chief of Police and to the established principles of Garrity versus New Jersey. The time now is 1:19 p.m. What we're going to ask from you is that you just give us an accurate account of the events that occurred on Saturday, November 26th, 2014 at 1910 West Boulevard, which is Cudell Rec. Before we get started, if we could just introduce ourselves.
Steve Kinas, Kinas, Vice President for the CPPA.
Timothy Loehmann, patrolman for Cleveland Police. Last name Loehmann.
Badge.
1231 is my badge.
Henry Hilo, HILOW, attorney for CPPA.
Prime Tim, homicide unit, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Rob Tucker, Internal Affairs.
Okay, if we could just start on from Saturday, November 22nd, what time you started work, who you were assigned with, and go from there.
I was assigned a zone car 1 Adam 25 with police officer Frank Garmback. His badge number is 1582. Roll call took place at 14:30.
Okay. Just go from there.
Okay.
Well, first off, let's just go real quick. Your partner was Frank Garmback, badge 1582. He was your training officer that day?
Yes, he is my field training officer.
All All right, when did you graduate from the academy?
I graduated August 28th of this year.
This year, 14? So you've been on the streets just over a month?
Yes. I served time in the 4th District in my one-man training phase, about a little over a month, and then I've been in the 1st District on my two-man phase for about 6 weeks now.
6 weeks, okay. All right, so on Saturday you reported a roll call and you're assigned with the car with Officer Garmback. What happened from there?
Right immediately out of roll call, we do our usual vehicle and equipment checks, and we had a call. Our first call was to an alarm at St. Ignatius Church.
Okay.
We tended to that matter, and we heard over the radio that they were in need of a car at Cudell Rec Center for a male with a gun pointing at passerbys. So we answered that call and said we would be en route.
And what type of assignment is that? Code 1?
It's a code 1. Yes, it is a code 1. While en route, Frank, being my field training officer, said, knowing that this is a call with a male with a gun, what do you do? And I said we're going to be at like an elevated level. We're going to be very cautious of what we do. Our approach is going to be different because it could put us in harm. So Frank said, very good. He's like, now we're going to be prepared. Please, take your weapon out, just in case, because we could come under fire at any time.
Okay.
Now, over radio, we also got a description of the male. It was a black male with a camouflage hat, wearing a gray sweatshirt with the black sleeves. So while en route, Frank decided to go from the south end of the park, I believe, which is Madison, and there's a fire station right there at West 100th.
Okay.
And we entered through the sidewalk, like back area of the near the fire station over there, and went on the grass.
So that would be off West 100th Street?
Yes.
Okay.
Which is, it dead ends. It dead ends, and if you slip through, like go to the side on the sidewalk, you could enter like the grass area of the park.
Okay. When you get the assignment for the Code 1 assignment, do you guys go lights and sirens?
We did at times, depending on traffic. I believe we did turn sirens on, and then we turned them off, depending on the flow of traffic. Like I said, it was on and off, I believe. That's how we usually run, depending on the call, the nature of the call, and the flow of traffic.
Correct.
We kind of judge the necessity of having it lights and sirens on.
Okay. So you get to 100th Street where the street dead ends to the park, and you said you go up on the curb. What happens then, or the sidewalk?
Okay, so you're entering the park, the grassy area, and immediately you see a male sitting underneath a gazebo by himself, just at a picnic table. As we are getting closer, you can the male matched the exact description that radio gave us: the camouflage hat, the gray sweatshirt with black sleeves, and it was a black male. And the male, was sitting there, and then he turns around and notices our zone car, approaching him. The male immediately stands up, and he grabs the gun off the table and shoves it in his waistband.
Okay, but how far do you think you are away from him at that point?
I would say 30 yards, maybe. I would say about. I'm not 100% sure. I would say about at least 30 yards. And
Is your lights on at this point, or did you turn them off? If you remember.
I cannot remember. I would assume they would be off, but I can't 100% tell you.
Okay.
Could I ask a question?
Sure.
Do you, as a driver officer, do you control the lights and sirens?
I do not. At the time, my gun was in my hand, and I was focused on the suspect, And then Frank was, he was the driver, so he was, controlling the car and, making sure. And there's a lot of snow and leaves, so Frank had to really, control the car and watch what he was doing. So,
All right, so you're about 30 yards away. You see the kid get up. You see him grab a gun from the table.
yes.
And what
and
happens?
he shoves it in his waistband in the front. Then immediately upon that, I at that point I knew he had a gun, so I opened the door slightly ajar and I had presented my weapon and I started screaming verbal commands. Put your hands in the air, put your hands in the air, let me see your hands, freeze, put your hands in the air. I said numerous times out loud, and I presented my gun, through the window, so,
Is your window down?
It was closed, I believe, not 100%, I believe it was closed. But I had the door slightly ajar open, and I was, making sure my gun could be seen by the male, so he knew that, this was not a joke, that we were serious, And as we approached closer, the male began to walk away, and it appeared like he was going to take off running. The male then
Did your partner say anything to you when you guys observed that?
he did not say anything because I was screaming the verbal commands. Put your hands up. Let me see your hands. Freeze. My partner didn't say anything. He was focused on controlling the car. Like I said, it was snow and grass and leaves, so he was maneuvering the car. And as we got closer, the male turned around, and that's when my partner attempted to stop. But I believe we did slide. There were like roots in the grass, I believe, from us trying to stop. So when we finally slowed down enough, I pushed the door open and had my gun presented in my right hand like this, and I was still screaming verbal commands. Let me see your hands, freeze, freeze, put your hands up, let me see your hands. And the subject, like I said, as we were coming almost to a complete stop, the subject was already facing our zone car.
So he turns to you.
He turns to us as we're almost at a stop, I would say, a near stop. And as he's turning, he looks at me, he lifts up his shirt, and he takes his other hand and reaches down and begins to pull up a weapon, a black gun. Now, at this time, I'm pushing the door open and trying to exit the vehicle. Now, the vehicle could have still been moving at a very slow speed because I believe we were sliding a little bit because of the debris, and the subject, had the gun in the abdomen area, almost raised, and I fired 2 shots, and then I attempted to take cover and move, and in the process of taking cover, I believe I twisted my ankle and slipped and fell, and I was on the ground. But when I returned upward, I was leaning on the cruiser because my leg hurt. I was at the back of the cruiser, the rear end, but I couldn't stand because I had injured my ankle. And then my partner, and what I see when I stand back up is the black male was down. My partner had his gun drawn, and he was shouting verbal commands, let me see your hands, let me see your hands. Now, the male wasn't complying right away with his hands. He was still moving them.
Where was he at this point?
He was on the ground, laying on the ground, on the cement portion of the gazebo, in the picnic table area. And, once I got up, I began, yelling commands again, let me see your hands, because like I said, he was still moving his hands. And then once the male decided to, stop moving, my partner approached and kicked what looked like a 1911 model pistol, a handgun, black handgun, and then we approached and observed the male. He pulled up his shirt, to show that the gun was removed. Like, he didn't say anything, he was just pulling up his shirt, and it also exposed the wound to the upper abdomen. And I'm not sure the order of the sequence, but my partner did render aid, and I was observing the scene 360 for other threats, and then I also, like I said, I don't know the order if Frank rendered aid first but the other part was from the recreation center. A female, black female, came out running, screaming, saying, "You shot my brother! You shot my brother!" And at that time, we approached her and wrapped her up so she couldn't get near the scene or the body. And
When you say wrapped her up, what do you mean?
like just put our arms around her so she couldn't get any closer. And then an off-duty police officer, I believe his name was Cunningham, assisted us. He came out of the rec center, I believe. He was working in secondary employment there, and he assisted me in cuffing the black female.
Do you recall if you cuffed her or he did?
It was my pair of cuffs. I want to say that he did, but and then, like I said, the order of sequence. Then detectives came, and I believe they were with the FBI. I recognized their faces from a bank robbery the day before on Warren, but I don't know their names. I'm not familiar with them. But they were one of the first to assist, and we placed in the back of our zone car.
Who's that?
1AM25. I want to say the
You mean
detective.
you placed a female?
The black female in the zone car.
Okay.
And then, she continued to scream, and Frank went back once that was taking it. Frank was rendering aid, and one of the detectives, who I believe stated he was a former medic, possibly. I'm not 100% sure. He also helped render aid, like he put gloves on, and they were tending to the male. And then the female was yelling, "She can't breathe, she can't breathe." So I went to the zone car and rolled down the back window for her so she can, breathe. And, we said, "Calm down, please calm down," And one of the detectives was assisting me. He was telling me to sit down and calm down because I injured my ankle and I could barely stand. And at that point, like Frank, kept calling, making calls over the radio saying, EMS, hurry up, we need EMS. I believe the first medical unit to arrive was the fire department, and they tended to the kid, and then EMS came and treated him, and other officers began taping off the area. Now, once we actually were able to slow down and observe what happened, then we did realize that it was a juvenile. We were not sure of his age, but at that point we could notice that it was a juvenile, and then also the magazine of the 1911 looking model weapon. The magazine fell out of it when Frank kicked it, and you could tell there was no. It was not bullets in it. It was like a BB type weapon.
All right. You guys are obviously in a marked police car, correct?
Yes, we are.
All right. And how were you dressed that day?
I was dressed in my usual uniform. My navy blue slack shirt. I wear a tie.
CPD patches.
CPD patches. My badge. I keep a run sheet in my between my buttons of my shirt. I have my duty rig on with handcuffs, my duty weapon with my Glock Model 17. I have another pair of cuffs and my ASP baton. I have my flashlight, my radio, my taser, my OC spray, and then two set of spare magazines in the front.
Okay. Do you have a secondary weapon?
I do not carry a secondary weapon.
All right. When you did fire your weapon, you said you fired how many times?
I fired twice.
2 times.
Fired twice, and then per our training, we're not supposed to stand still. We're supposed to move. So fired twice, and then tried to get some kind of cover which I tried to behind the cruiser, as almost like a point of retreat, which we're also trained like retreating areas, like using the cruiser as, some type of concealment or cover. But like I said, in doing so, I injured my ankle, and I was on the ground, and it was hard for me to stand when I came back up. And also we were taught in the academy, it said that your cruiser is your coffin. So I wanted to get out of the cruiser as fast as possible, because the male presenting a weapon was an immediate threat to myself and my partner. So I reacted in such a way that I was trained, in defense, firing 2 shots, and rendering the suspect down.
When you did fire your weapon, do you know about how far away you were?
It was approximately 10 feet, I would say.
And at the time you fired your weapon, did he actually have the gun in hand?
Yes, it was like partially in his waistband. He lift up his shirt and present like a clear, cut image that his hand was going down into his waistband, and he was pulling upward, the weapon.
Did he say anything to you or your partner at any time?
He did not. All he did was, he lifted up his shirt, and that way we could see that there was no, the gun was out of his waistband, and that he was shot in the upper abdomen, and he kind of pretty much just moaned. He didn't say anything to me, at least. My partner mostly was the one tending, to the suspect, and I was observing the scene, all around for other threats.
Do you recall when you guys were pulling up that your partner was telling you that he was getting ready to run?
I can't say I recall that, but just the boy's actions. When he grabbed the gun, put it in his waistband, he was walking away from our zone car, and it looked like it did appear that he was going to run.
Okay. Well, during that time, you're giving commands to this man.
Yes, that's
raise
correct.
His hands.
Yes, let me see your hands. And at that time, my focus was on his hands and the area where he shoved the gun, which was his waistband. So, like I said, he matched the perfect description that as radio gave it to us. So, we had every reason to believe that this was the black male that we were looking for, and even in addition to additionally we saw I witnessed him take the gun, shove it in his waistband, and proceed to walk away.
All right. At some point, right after the incident, did somebody confiscate your weapon from you?
Sergeant Rutherford did.
Okay.
She took my weapon, and then when I was being treated by EMS, Deputy Chief Tomba took my 2 magazines.
When you handed your weapon over to Sergeant Rutherford, was it in the same condition after shooting?
Yes, it was. Yes.
Did you take your magazine out? Anything
No,
like that?
I did not reload a magazine. I just returned it back to my holster once the threat was clear.
Okay. And you said you gave your 2 spare magazines to Commander?
Deputy Chief Tomba.
Okay. And what, your left ankle was injured?
Yes, my left ankle is injured. I was treated by EMS, and I could hardly walk on it. I had to, be assisted, by other officers, and I was sent to Fairview Hospital, where they took X-rays.
What's wrong with it?
They said it appeared that there was no fractures, but it was a severe sprain. It was swollen. Immediately after, it was probably almost 10 minutes. I would say almost 10 minutes after I removed my shoe and sock, and my ankle was swollen, to about the size of a tennis ball.
Somebody did come out and photograph you that night?
Yes, they did. At the hospital, they photographed my ankle, and now the current state of my ankle is it's really bruised now. It almost looks like I'm wearing a black sock, The swelling has gone down now, but the bruising is worse.
Any other injuries?
No, that was the only injury, was my left ankle.
Did you have any exposure to blood?
No, sir.
At any time, did you hear your partner fire his weapon?
He did not.
What time of day does this take place?
This took place at 3:30. Was 3:30 p.m. is when we got the call, so it's daylight hours. We arrived shortly afterward. It only took us approximately 2 minutes to get down to that area.
What were the conditions outside today?
It was, I would say, partly cloudy, but daylight. So that's how you could view the weapon so well, and the subject, and
It had snowed the night before.
Yes, so there was snow on the ground, and we were in a park with trees, so there was leaves on the ground and grass. So, like I said, it was difficult probably for Frank to maneuver the zone car, and also, like I said, for me trying to, get out of the line of fire. If the black male did, return fire, I slipped and twisted my ankle and fell, because of the conditions.
When you did fire your weapon, were you actually outside the vehicle?
I had the door propped open, and I probably was in almost like a halfway crouched manner. I wasn't like fully standing up, I would say. Like,
Could you stand up?
like I was
Kind of
probably
like
about like this,
Okay.
and I believe I shot just with one hand.
So
Not-
this would be the door?
This would be
This
the
is car
door.
because you're
Right.
the passenger.
Right.
So-
Right. I am the passenger.
This was the car, the seat that you would have been in?
Yes.
And you're out of the door now?
Yeah, I'm like in the doorway, and the subject's about, right where he is, a little bit farther. And I fired 2 shots, and then, like I said, I tried to go to the rear of the zone car for cover. So I probably, I was not standing fully up and like full presentation like this. I was, it was that quick where the black male turned, lifted up his shirt, grabbed, reached in his waistband, pulled up the weapon, and that's, at that time I was probably about like this, and that's when I had to fire 2 shots and attempt to gain cover.
And let me, while you're still up,
Sure.
when relax for a second.
Okay.
When you see him at the picnic table,
Mhm.
okay, you made motions before with the gun being down, and with his right hand, he took something off the table.
Yes,
Which
the gun.
was the gun.
Yes.
Okay. And then when he puts it back in his waistband, you said, is he standing at that point?
Yeah, he is standing. He stood first, I believe, to create room to place it in his waistband, I believe, and then he proceeded to walk away, like he was still under the gazebo,
Okay.
walking away.
Which would be towards north?
towards the recreation center.
Okay. And at that point, what do you think's happening?
I would like it. I thought that he was going to take off, and I believe my partner thought the same thing.
When you say
That's
take off, what do you mean?
like running, like he was going to run.
Okay.
And try to elude us. And that's why, like our cruiser, we continued, to approach the male because his back was turned to us, and he was walking away from the cruiser towards the rec center. So it did seem like he was going to, run from us, run away.
Okay. Did you make a comment at all? Do you say he's gonna go, he's gonna run?
No, I believe like there was no communication between Frank and I because I was yelling the whole time, "Let me see your hands."
But there was communication with you prior to you coming down 100th Street.
Yes, yeah,
Did you
that
discuss-
was discussed how we were going to approach the scene. That was en route, like before we hit the park.
Okay. So now you're back you're coming through the park.
Mm-hmm.
He stood up, he put the gun, which he showed us in his waistband.
Yes, in his
Great
waistband,
room.
yeah.
And you think he's going northbound.
Yes, towards the rec
All
center.
right. And then at that point, he turns back to come westbound? Turns
He
towards you?
he faces like to probably check to see where we were.
Mhm.
And he turned and faced our own car, like you said, westbound, and that's when he began, like when he saw that we were like behind him, like approaching him, that that's when he pulled up his shirt and
Let me stop you there.
Okay.
You made a comment before that you went through some ruts or something like that. What?
I was saying that we. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe we did slide a bit. I believe Frank tried to stop
Did you
the car.
feel the car pulsating?
No, I did not. I was focused on the subject's hands and his waistline because I knew there was, a gun involved.
Right. When do you think that you opened up the door and presented your weapon? How far away were you from the guy at that point?
Like I said, about 10 feet, because at that time the subject had already turned around and faced our own car.
So you don't open up the door.
If the door's already open, it's slightly ajar, because I opened it to yell commands, the verbal commands from the start when I saw him take the gun and put it in his waistband. So all I had to do was push it open.
Okay. And how far away were you at that point where you opened up the door to yell commands?
When I initially yelled commands, or
Yes.
from when we were right next.
You made a comment that you opened up the door to yell commands when you saw the gun on the table and you started putting it in his waist.
Mhm.
How far away were you at that point?
I would say between 20 and 30 yards at least. I could be wrong, but I would say 23 yards. But I was screaming in a loud manner so it could be heard, and like I said, I presented my weapon, so it could be seen through the window to know that this was an emergency incident, and that this was not a joke, and that
Okay.
that there was a severe threat.
For purposes of the video,
Yes.
you are the passenger officer.
I am.
You are traveling, which would be northbound.
Yes, towards
And
Richmond.
so you would have your right-handed.
Yes, I am
So
right-handed.
your weapon's out, and you would have to reach a little bit across with your body to open up the door.
Yeah, to open up the door. At that point, I was probably seated. This is like the cruiser car. I was probably seated like this.
Okay.
Get ready. I was ready. For any type of action. Like if he took off running. To get out of the cruiser, or if he did turn around and fire, that I would be ready to react to that.
Okay.
So I was preparing myself. As Frank, as my training officer, he told me to be prepared for anything, and the elevation, the level that we were at, it got higher and higher and higher, just because first you see him, the male matching description, but then you see the gun. And then now he's walking away, and now he's presenting the gun. He's pulling out his waistband. So your levels were getting higher and higher and higher, and the threat just became incredible. Where I had to make the decision fast, because Frank and I were in immediate danger. If the subject did pull out the gun and present it and point it towards us, I would have been shot, and possibly my friend, my partner would have been shot, especially due to the close proximity that we were at. We were easy targets, and plus I was stuck in the doorway, and my partner was still seated in the driver's seat. So we were basically sitting ducks.
Okay. You made a comment just there that if he pointed a gun at you, you would have been shot.
Yes.
Did it get that far?
He did not. The farthest he got was raising it to about his abdomen level. He did not punch out or present it, because when he got about this far, that's when I shot.
Why?
Because I believed there was a threat to myself and my partner, and it was in order to kill us or harm us.
So you thought what?
I thought I was going to die,
And why?
because he had a weapon that at close proximity, and he was going to use it against us, because to the facts that the radio gave us, that he was pointing a gun at other people, and he and no doubt in my mind that he was going to present to us and possibly harm us or even kill us. There was no doubt in my mind that threat was there, and I had to take action to protect the lives of myself and my partner.
Let's go back once again to the gun.
Sure.
All right. You say it's with his right hand?
I believe it was with his right hand. One hand had the shirt,
Okay.
and the other was reaching down in his waistband and pulling up.
So you see his hand on the weapon?
Yes, yeah.
Where at on the weapon?
Like in a grip on the, the grip of the gun.
And then can you see the gun coming out?
He was pulling it upward towards his abdomen.
All right, and at that point is when you're out of the car and you fire 2 rounds.
2 rounds, yes.
And why'd you fire 2?
I fired 2, and I also wanted to get out of the position that I was in because I was trapped in the doorway. And if I was fired upon, like I couldn't go backwards, I couldn't go forward or left because the door, I was trapped in the door. So the only exit option I had was to retreat to the back of the cruiser, and even that was kind of like a far retreat given the how close we were to them. But so I was able to like lunge over to the area, but like I said, I hurt myself, and I was able to get behind the cruiser for cover. But at that time, when I stood up, the subject was already on the ground.
And what does that mean?
I believe that I did hit the subject and neutralize the threat.
Is that why you didn't shoot anymore?
I did not shoot anymore, and at that time I could see his hands.
Okay.
He was moving his hands.
Let me go back
Yes.
to that. When
Sure.
he's down on the ground, is he face down?
No, he was face upward. Like I don't know if he rolled. I don't know how he fell because I was trying to get out of the way. But when I stood up, he was face upward and rolling, motioning and moving his hands.
Okay.
And the threat was still there at the time, even though he was on the ground, because we didn't know like.
But you didn't see? Did you see a gun at that point?
At that point, I did not have a good view. My partner.
But you were able to see his hands.
I was able to see his hands, so I did not fire again.
Why didn't you fire again?
Because there was no gun in his hand. There was no weapon in his hand at the time. But then, my partner was on the other side of his own car, the front of his own car, and he had a better view and saw that the gun had, fallen from his grip, like next to him, a couple feet next to him, and, when the male stopped moving, my partner, he had his gun presented, and he approached, and he kicked the gun to the side.
Okay, your gun was still out too?
My gun was still out.
And you had the suspect covered?
The suspect was covered, yes.
All right. Do you see the gun on the ground?
When my partner kicked it away, yes.
Okay. You made a comment earlier too, something about it being a 1911 Colt. How did you know that?
I'm a gun collector. I have multiple guns at home. I read on weapons. I follow history. I can identify guns, fairly easily. I read magazines. I'm a hunter, so I'm well rounded with weapons. I can recognize weapons, and to me, it looked like like a military issued Colt 1911 model gun, which is a larger 45 caliber weapon.
And with your experience of guns and collecting and reading everything, what did that gun look like to you?
It looked like a Colt 1911 model 45 caliber.
A BB gun?
No, it did not look like a BB gun.
It was a gun.
It was a gun.
Okay.
At the time I noticed that it was a BB gun is when Frank kicked it over and the magazine fell out, and when I did move myself from the back of his own car to approach the victim and where the gun was, then I noticed the magazine did not contain 45 caliber rounds. It appeared that it would be more suitable to contain like BBs.
Okay. At any point, did you have any contact with the suspect? Did you put your hands on him? Did you cuff him?
I did not put any hands on the suspect. My partner did. He was the one that tended the suspect.
Okay.
Like I said, I was the one making sure the scene was safe 360, because there could have been possible other threats coming from the rec center, which the first person I saw was the black female that was running towards us, and that's when I had to act and restrain her.
Okay. Did you handcuff the person you shot?
I did not handcuff.
Do you know if he was ever handcuffed?
I think he was not. He was not. He was still moving his hands. He was not cuffed, and the gun was away. So I believe it was safe enough where we could tend to the subject to his.
Do you recall seeing anyone else out there with him when you were pulling up?
No, he was sitting by himself.
Do you recall seeing anyone else in the park?
There was not anyone else around in the park. It was just him at the gazebo sitting by himself on the picnic table. There was no one else, in the vicinity at all. And it was probably about 2 minutes later when I saw the black female running from the rec center, and then there was approximately 3 males standing by the rec center door, and then another police officer came out of the rec center and assisted with the black female that was running on scene.
I want to clarify one thing. Detective Diaz asked you if this person made any comments to you, and you said that when he was on the ground after he was shot that he was moaning.
Yeah,
prior to that,
Mhm.
when he's making the motion to get the gun
Mhm.
out of his waistband, is he making any comments to you? Is
No, he
saying
did not.
anything to
He
you?
did not say any words.
All right, the only thing that was being said where you were saying, "Show me your hands,
Yes.
freeze, stop."
Yes, correct.
Okay, all right. The information that you had
hmm
coming to that scene was what?
The information dispatched by dispatchers when we initially got was a black male wearing a camouflage hat in a gray sweater with black sleeves. That was it. And it said the male had a gun and was pointing it at passerbys in the park, and he was in the park area, by the swing set area.
Did they give you an approximate age?
No, there was no age given. It was a black male. That was
Any other
it.
mention of the weapon, what kind it was?
No, there was no mention of what kind of weapon or size or anything. It was just a black male with a weapon.
Physical? Did he give you a physical description other than the clothing description?
No, it was just a clothing description. That was it.
No height or weight.
No height or weight, no.
You went to the hospital.
I did.
All right. You were transported by EMS?
Yes, I was.
Okay.
Cleveland EMS.
And you were on scene for how long before they transported you?
I would say approximately, about 20 minutes. I am not sure. Because at first I was told to sit down, get off my leg because I was injured. I could hardly
Did you get
stand.
separated from your partner?
I was separated from my partner. Upon when other officers, Cleveland police officers, were on scene I saw officers begin to tape off the scene, and a big black male was coming from the fire station area, and he was posturing like he was gonna pump me, and he was yelling fuck the police, and you shot my brother. And at that time I figured that was his brother, and the police he was posturing to hit a police officer, but the police placed his arms around him and they cuffed him and took him off.
Did you have any contact with him?
No, I did not.
Okay. And you were seated?
I was seated. At that time I was standing outside a cruiser, probably resting my hand, keeping my weight off my ankle.
Okay.
And then I did sit down in another cruiser. It was probably the cruiser that was I would say closest to our zone car. Probably the second. I'm not sure, but probably the second responders from our department's cruiser. And I sat in the front passenger seat. And at that time, I was approached by Sergeant Rutherford, where she checked on me and made sure I was okay. And then I gave her my firearm.
Okay, so you did not have a chance to talk to Officer Garmback?
I did not. No.
Okay.
No.
Since this event, have you had an opportunity to talk to him?
When we returned to the district, Officer Garmback and I were separated for hours because I was being treated at the hospital and he was dancing.
On that point, You said you were at the scene for a good 20 minutes?
I would say at least 20 minutes.
Okay, and then you were transported to what hospital?
Fairview Hospital. And I was in the back of the ambulance for a long time, and that's when other members of the police department came to talk to me. That's when Deputy Chief Tomba took my 2 magazines along. I believe he was with Commander McCartney. Steve was one who showed up.
Did anybody from the use of deadly force team talk to you at that point?
No one talked to me at that point. It was
What were
just
you
EMS personnel.
Were you actually interviewed by the use of deadly force?
I was interviewed by them at the hospital. Tucker, you were the first to show up. Then Andre Cisco showed up from the Employee Assistance Unit, and Jeff Fulmer showed up, and then Detective Diaz showed up, and that's when we had a discussion of the events that took place.
All right.
Had you talked to your partner prior to that?
I did not.
Okay. So when I interviewed you, you hadn't talked to...
I had
your
not.
partner?
No, he was still on scene, and I was being treated at the hospital. The only officer that was with me was Luke Kitko, who assisted me in walking and, was presiding over me because I did not have my weapon at the time. And Luke Kitko presided over me, and he did a very good job.
At what point did you get your secondary weapon to date? Was it replaced?
In the hospital, hours later, one of the detectives from the hospital, or the homicide unit, returned. I don't know his name. I see him here today, but he returned me a duty weapon and my magazines.
Okay. What ankle did you injure?
I injured my left ankle.
Okay, when you left the hospital that night, were you able to walk on your own, or did you have crutches?
I was not. They gave me Motrin, a prescription for Percocet. They wrapped my ankle, and they gave me a air cast and a set of crutches. So I was using the crutches, and also Officer Kitko, assisted me with, getting in the cruiser and,
Can you give me about how long you were at the hospital?
I would say at least 2 hours.
Okay. Were you able to come back to the scene and assist us with a walkthrough?
I was not able to come back to see. My ankle was, injured to the point where I could not stand on my own, and I, was in pain.
Plus you were being treated, right?
I was being treated also, so I did not return to the scene that night at all.
Okay. Based on that, we would like to see if we get a medical release for your medical records for that day for that treatment.
Certainly.
Okay? And we'll discuss that.
objection.
Yeah, all right. We'll discuss that. Since this time, after you were interviewed, gave your initial verbal statement to Detective Diaz, did you have conversations with your partner?
The only conversation that I've had with my partner was after I was released from the hospital, and after he left the scene. We were reunited. He picked me up from the hospital and took me to district. We may have briefly talked about the incident, but mostly we were working on paperwork, completing our duty, and I also had paperwork from the hospital, and we had a report, just general paperwork to take.
So you didn't rehearse your stories or anything?
Not really. I mean, we talked probably briefly about it, just making sure we're okay.
So what you told Detective Diaz that night, what you told us tonight is what happened?
Yes, that's what happened.
Okay. I had one other question. I forgot what it was.
You remember.
Oh. You said that you hit the streets out of the police academy, Cleveland Police Academy, on August 28th.
Yes,
What was your appointment date to our department?
It was March 3rd, 2014. That's when I was appointed to the academy. That was our first day of the academy. And the academy is approximately 6 months long. And then we are sworn in and detailed to a district to continue our training.
Okay. Prior to coming to the Cleveland Police Department, do you have any prior experience with law enforcement?
I was sworn in by the Independence Police Department, and I attended the Cleveland Heights Police Academy, but I resigned in the early stages of my training with the Independence Police Department. So I've been trained, but I would say my experience on the street is almost to none. You know,
Is what you've gotten through us.
is what
Cleveland.
is my experience on the street is all through Cleveland.
Okay. When did you go through Cleveland Heights
Um,
Academy?
I started the Cleveland Heights Police Academy July 11th of 2012.
And when did you resign from them?
I resigned from the Independence Police Department December 5th of 2012.
And why was that?
Personal reasons I resigned for.
Okay. Did you know that you were going to get hired by Cleveland at that time?
I did not, but I was pursuing to go to another department. Shortly afterward, I was on lists of other police department and was pursuing to take tests for other police department,
Okay.
preferably bigger police departments.
Okay. Any military?
I do not have any military experience. I'm a college graduate.
Okay. Where'd you go?
I went to Cleveland State University, where I obtained my bachelor's degree in criminology and sociology. And I also have a associate's degree from Garvik Community College in law enforcement.
I think you went to get the medical release, and we'll ask at this point. I'm sorry, do you have any
No,
questions?
no.
We'd like to take a formal written statement from him.
Waiver written statement, rely on the video.
Okay, all right. Any questions? Any
None by
concerns?
me. Steve, any questions?
I do not.
Officer Loman, is there something that we missed, something that we need to know, anything?
Not at this time. What I presented is the events that happened on that day.
Okay. This is a Garrity form, which we talked about at the beginning. I'm sure Attorney Hilo here talked to you about it, so we'll let you guys sign your details. So,
Okay.
I thought we had two, but we'll just make copies.
There's no T in my name, right?
There is now. I didn't do that, sorry.
Yeah.